Da na 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 na. Da da na 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 na. Da da. Welcome to Keeping Score, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. We're live to tape, no editing allowed, which is why I had to create my own music. I think I did pretty good. I don't know, I'll have to listen to it back. This is going to be a very different episode. I'm calling it the Super Bowl special. Once again, live to tape. Not much time to edit, not much time to prepare all the segments that I normally do. So it's going to be a little bit different this week, but I will go over the Super Bowl that we witnessed on Sunday in depth, and it was one that definitely provided a lot of talking points, a lot of storylines. I'm going to look at some of the good and some of the bad because I think that that's what really characterized the Super Bowl. A lot of, the great things that we love about football, they showed, and a lot of the bad things that we don't like so much about football also showed. So we're going to go over the good and the bad, starting with the first good, a close game. The New England Patriots, there is a lot of fatigue. As we discovered on Question of the Week a couple weeks back, there is plenty of New England fatigue. But here's what you can't take away from Patriots Super Bowls. They're close every single time. Tom Brady's first Super Bowl was in 2002. He's been in 8 since then. Never has the final score been more than a one-possession margin. This last Super Bowl, which came down to the final play, mind you, was actually the largest margin in Tom Brady's Super Bowl history. And it was 8 points, still one possession. Still came down to the last play. So do we like to see the Patriots in the Super Bowl every year? No. But you can't take that away from them. They have given us very close games. Now moving on to the bad, the rules. Yes, all of the rules controversy, in football, that whole thing reared its ugly head in this year's Super Bowl. But first, I want to shed light on a rule that people normally don't complain about, but I do all the time, and that's the extra point. 2 extra points were missed in this game, one by Philadelphia, and then one by New England. But for Philly, they kept trying to go for 2 to make up for that missed PAT, and they were continuously unsuccessful. So ultimately, if the kicker, who's the kicker? Jake Elliott. If Jake Elliott hadn't missed that extra point, Philadelphia would have had 44 points, not 41. Let's just say every touchdown was 7 points. They would have had 44. New England would have had 34 points instead of 33. But once again, since Philadelphia kept going for 2, it was much more costly for the Eagles. It wouldn't have been a one-possession game if the kicker made the kick. So it didn't bite Philadelphia in the ass. But this is the dumbest rule change in the history of the NFL because it does one thing and one thing only. It makes the kicker more important. If you change a rule and the result of the rule is that kickers are more important, it's a bad rule. If your grandpa played for the Dallas Cowboys, oh my God, that's amazing. Grandpa, what position did you play? And he said that he was the kicker, aren't you a little bit less excited? Yeah, you are. Because kickers are only half a football player. And it's part of the game, and nothing personally against kickers, but they're half a football player. I want my 240-pound, massive world-class athletes to decide football games, not kickers. And, once again, we have missed extra points in the Super Bowl because they decide to move it back to the 33-yard line a couple years back. And all of a sudden, games in the NFL are being decided because of missed PATs. That's awful. But, I say it all the time on this channel. I'm not a guy who just points out problems. I'm a guy who points out solutions. So here's my solution. When a team scores, they can either take 7 points or go for 2. Eliminate the PAT. The PAT makes no sense. If they go for 2 and they fail, 6 points. Otherwise, they can just take that extra point, right? It's just a decision. The coach tells the ref, either we're going for 2, they can use their fingers like this, they can hold up a 2. If they go for 2, they're either going to end up with 6 or 8. If not, it's 7 points. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that's not the only time the rules were a problem. 2 reviews over the now infamous catch rule. What is a catch? and we'll get into this more a little bit later. Chris Collinsworth, the color commentator, was 0 for 2 on predicting the outcomes of these reviews. The first one was Corey Clement in the third quarter, where he catches the ball and he sort of gets 2 feet down, but his third step is out of bounds. The question was, when he made his first step, had he already secured possession? And I feel like this call is inconsistent, because if Corey Clement had, let's say, the ball knocked out of his hands, I'm pretty sure basically after that third step, if the ball was immediately knocked out of his hands, they would have called it incomplete. I see it all the time. They're very loose with that. Until you secure the ball completely, and it's not moving at all, and you really have a grasp on it, which Corey Clement didn't. He didn't bobble it, but he didn't really have a grasp on it. It was still moving in his hands. Until you have a firm grasp on it, the ball isn't moving, and you take 2 steps, there's no possession. And for Clement, he took that first step right as the ball was sort of entering his hands, and I thought it was inconsistent. I would have called it incomplete. Collinsworth and Michaels also would have called it incomplete. There's no rules expert on the broadcast, but I think that was pretty inconsistent. I would have called it incomplete. But then the second one, I'm pretty sure they got right, and that was Zach Ertz in the fourth quarter. Definitely a catch in hindsight. But once again, back to the broadcast. They made it confusing as hell, because the broadcast kept showing the tail end of the play when Zach Ertz kind of spiked the ball onto the end zone turf, right? And basically didn't control it to the ground. But at that point, he was a runner. And if you're a runner and the ball breaks the plane, that's a touchdown. But they keep showing replays of the ball hitting the end zone. And, I kind of forgot what happened before that. So I tweet, how is this controversial? This has never been a catch. The ball clearly hit the ground. He didn't control it to the ground, right? And Chris Collinsworth is saying the same thing. And then it's not until they go back and show another replay where I realize Zach Ertz had the ball and took 2 steps. So he was a runner. So they actually got that call right. But still, mass confusion, mostly stemming from the broadcast, where Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth admitted that they don't know what a catch is. And that's not on them. That's on the rules. This has just been sort of, a crazy theme all season. And look, it's confusing. I think that the first one they got wrong. I don't know. Maybe they got it right. The second one they definitely, I think, got right. Another good thing, big plays. 5 touchdowns over 20 yards for New England and Philadelphia. Let me put this in perspective. The average, or not the average, yards per play this season, New Orleans led the league, 6.3 yards per play. In this game, New England averaged 8.5 yards per play, and Philadelphia averaged 7.6 yards per play. So this was a, in terms of offensive output, plays over 20 yards, all that jazz. The tackling was very, very poor in this game, but it led to a ton of big plays, entertaining football. So I'd say that was definitely a positive. Back to the bad, we have concussions. Not much to say on this. Pat Chung got knocked out of the game with a concussion for New England, but it was mostly the Brandon Cooks hit early in the second quarter. This is the ugly side of the game in the world, in the biggest stage of the year. Once again, rearing its ugly head. Cooks early in the second quarter gets knocked unconscious on a legal helmet-to-helmet collision. Here you go. I'll pull up the picture here. If you haven't seen my main story on concussions, you should check that out because I talk about how hits like this, where it's a helmet-to-helmet hit, where clearly Malcolm Jenkins has no concern over whether or not his helmet strikes Brandon Cook's helmet. The way he goes about that hit, there's no concern there. And it's not Malcolm Jenkins' fault. It's the equipment's fault. It's helmet's fault. But Cooks is knocked unconscious on the field, and these are bad images. These are bad images for 100+ people, to be watching the Super Bowl and for us all to see. We know how damaging these things are, and seeing Cooks unconscious, that's obviously a negative. But once again, a legal hit, part of the game, part of the reality of this sport. Philadelphia celebrates. As a New Yorker, this was a very, very tough Super Bowl. You really didn't know who to root for. I'm not Philadelphia and Boston, New England, whatever, both kind of rival East Coast cities. The Eagles are a rival of the Giants. Not that I'm a Giants fan, but still. And of course, Boston sports is kind of, the enemy across the board for me. So this was kind of hard, but at the end of the day, after the final whistle, there was no doubt I was happy Philadelphia won, because clearly one city wanted this more than the other. And I encourage you to go on the internet. Barstool probably has the best feed in terms of Twitter, as far as Twitter goes, when it comes to Philadelphia's celebration. Not that this is... Yeah, I can't condemn it. As long as no one died. I hope no one died. I haven't heard about anyone dying, but that would really be awful if anyone died because of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. But other than that, these people, they destroyed the city. They were flipping cars. They were starting fires. There you have a photo of the Ritz-Carlton awning, very expensive hotel. Philadelphians, apparently when they're happy, they just want to climb shit. They were climbing the gate of Town Hall. They were climbing poles, which they're known for. And there you saw them climbing the Ritz-Carlton awning. So, it's amazing to see. It was amazing to see Chicago celebrate their first championship. It was amazing to see Philadelphia celebrate this Super Bowl championship. So in that respect, I was happy that the Eagles won. Halftime. Halftime was bad. Halftime was bad, people. So Justin Timberlake, without a feature. Timberlake, I'm not a fan. I don't know much about him, but I know that almost everything he played is old. And that's because Justin Timberlake is old news. There was no feature, and he's clearly not worthy of that. I mean, Bruno Mars has consistently gotten features. Beyonce had a feature. Everyone has a feature. Why did Justin Timberlake, of all people, not have a feature? Like, as if he didn't need one. The best part of halftime was the Prince tribute. But was Justin Timberlake really the best guy to cover Prince? I mean, speaking of Bruno Mars, he's already done 2 Super Bowl halftimes already. But, hell, he would have done a way better job. Anderson .Paak's a guy who comes to mind. I think he would have done a way better job. And then you have Selfie Kid. Let's you know what? This is impromptu don't hit send. Yeah, this is don't hit send. Don't hit send this week is Selfie Kid. You are on a Super Bowl telecast. A Super Bowl telecast. You were standing next to Justin Timberlake during the Super Bowl halftime show for 20 seconds. And 10 of those seconds were spent by you unlocking your phone and opening up your camera. Why? Why? Did you need to document this with your camera? You're on television. Did you take the selfie so your friends would believe you? So you could go to school the next day? You could say like, hey, look, Justin Timberlake went into the stands and, he was singing right next to me. Your friends were watching. They were watching. They saw you. You didn't need to take a selfie. Now, I feel awful about attacking this kid because I know that 80% of kids his age, and you know what, quite frankly, my age, my generation is included in this, they would have taken a selfie. And to that I say, don't take a selfie. Enjoy the moment. Dance with Justin Timberlake. Sing with Justin Timberlake. And I'm pretty sure somewhere on the internet, you can watch the halftime show back, take a screenshot, make it your Facebook profile, make it your Twitter profile. Have a ball with it. Post it everywhere. Don't hit send. Don't hit send on the selfie button. You do not need to take out your phone in that moment. I didn't like halftime. Doug Peterson's guts. Unbelievable, people. Unbelievable. Him and Bruce Arians have had kind of great success with almost like a, speaking of millennial phrases, almost like a YOLO mentality. Philadelphia was 2 for 2 on fourth downs. They've been very aggressive on fourth downs all year, and that didn't stop in the Super Bowl. It's the end of the first half, 4th and goal on the 1. The Eagles could go up 6, but they decide to go for 10. So this trick play was incredible. Nick Foles goes to the right side of his offensive line and starts audibling, right? So this is the first trickery. You think that Foles is calling an audible. Wait, no. It's a direct snap. Is it going to be a power? No. It's a reverse, right? So it's fake audible, direct snap. Now you think maybe it's going to be a power, a run up the middle. Nope, it's a reverse. So now it's a reverse, right? No, it's a pass to Nick Foles. Incredible. One of my favorite trick plays of all time, because there were so many layers to it. And there were so many times where you think that you thought that the trickery was over, and then it continued, and it ended in, obviously the quarterback catching a pass. That's always fun. And this was after the Patriots tried to pass it to Tom Brady, and Brady looked like the unathletic player that he is. He really showed his age on that one, and then he was memed after the game for dropping the Lombardi trophy. Malcolm Butler benching. If this was politics, we would have to file a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. I mean, this kind of stunk. I feel like it was a small dark cloud over the game, albeit a small one, because it's just Malcolm Butler. It's just one defensive player, a good defensive player on the New England Patriots, but he led the Patriots. He was on the field for 98% of New England snaps in the regular season, and he played basically all the playoff snaps for them as well. And then for some reason he just doesn't play, not a single snap in this year's Super Bowl, and he was sick and had a bad week of practice. That's the reporting that's been done on it so far. But I'm calling foul on that one. That's I'm speechless about that. A dude's sick, the adrenaline, the moment, loyalty. I mean, I really can't imagine that was the right call for Bill Belichick. But I think that's an example of an old, legendary, established coach kind of being too big for his britches. I hate to attack a dude like Bill Belichick. It would be a very rare occasion that I would say that Bill Belichick is, being stupid, because he knows a hell of a lot more than me, and overall he's a genius. But this is a dude, I don't know, dare I say, overcoaching, getting too cute, no doubt. Nick Foles, obviously. That's kind of the main storyline. How about this? Alabama's backup quarterback won a national championship for them, and now the Eagles win with a backup quarterback in Nick Foles. So both major football championships won by backup quarterbacks. That's something else. So Nick Foles, what a strange career. 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in 2013 MVP season. Since then, but before 2017, he went on to throw 23 touchdowns to 20 interceptions. So a very, very strange turnaround by Nick Foles. But then Super Bowl LI, 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. So Nick Foles with the roller coaster of all roller coasters of a career. And now I'd say this is going to be one of the most interesting things to see next season, what Philadelphia does. Do they keep him on the roster? Is Nick Foles a part of the Philadelphia Eagles roster come week 1 next season? It's no guarantee that Carson Wentz is back for week 1, so they might have to use Nick Foles. At the same time, this is a dude who, you're going to have to start Carson Wentz when Carson Wentz is back. And right now, Nick Foles' trade value is very, very high. Obviously, a market for quarterbacks. So, will they trade him? Will they hold on to him? How does he do wherever? I'm pretty confident that by the end of next season, he won't be a Philadelphia Eagle. But we'll see how soon he gets traded. And I don't know what to think about Nick Foles. Does anyone know what to think about Nick Foles? All right, here's the last one. The last bad is the broadcast. Richard Deitch had a great column on SI.com kind of going over the broadcast, so you can check that out. But first, Chris Collinsworth, who, pretty universal opinion, he had a bad night. He kept saying RPO, run pass option, but no one really knows what that means. I mean, this was viewed by over 100 million Americans. How many Americans know what an RPO is? 2 million? I mean, seriously, how many know what an RPO is? Run pass option. They eventually explained it, but Chris Collinsworth needs to know his audience there. There was a 45-second blackout in the second quarter, which was, I was freaking out. I was freaking out at this. I mean, NBC said that they didn't lose an ad, but in reality they did because it was a 45-second blackout. Normally ads are 30 seconds long, for the Super Bowl, and every 30-second ad costs $5 million for the advertiser. So did NBC ultimately lose $5 million on that equipment malfunction? I would think so, regardless of what they say. I did mention that Chris Collinsworth was 0 for 2 on replay predictions. But Al Michaels, play-by-play legend, didn't have a good night either. Al Michaels said Mike Trout was on the California Angels. He said Matt Patricia, the Patriots defensive coordinator, who will soon be the Detroit Lions head coach, he said that he was going to coach the Detroit Pistons. That would be wrong. And speaking of basketball references, he seemed to make like 35 unnecessary basketball analogies. I don't know what that comes from. And then it was an extremely suspenseful last play, yet for some reason Al Michaels sounded unexcited. So not a good night for the broadcast, not a good night for Michaels and Collinsworth, who I'm generally a fan of. And that'll do it. That's the good, that's the bad for the 2018 NFL Super Bowl. And that is our show. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll have a normal show for you next week in all likelihood, and I will see you then. Peace.